Hello and welcome to this second and final first look exploring session looking at the Virtuous Octavia, the story so far. In 1598, Samuel Brandon wrote the Virtuous Octavia. Prior to writing the Virtuous Octavia, Samuel Brandon presumably was born, and sometime after writing it, we can assume that he died. However, there is as of yet no evidence that he did. So for all we know, Samuel Brandon is still out there and still writing to this day. The question that we're going to be asking this session is that a good thing or a bad thing? So that's literally, we know nothing about Samuel Brandon at all, apart from he wrote this play. And we have spent one session getting to grips with how virtuous Octavia is. The answer is quite virtuous, depending on your point of view as to what virtue is, or maybe we could call it the moderately judgmental Octavia. Might be a more accurate appetite, but it depends on your point of view. I'm sure there will be many more points of view as we complete the play, going from Act 3, Scene 2 to the end with these wonderful set of readers, and indeed an additional bonus reader who hopefully will join us mid-flow. So, reading today, the Virtuous Octavia is
Lynsey Beauchamp, actor in Scotland.
Reading, I'm going to be very careful with how I'm saying some of these. Plancus, Mecoenas and Geminus is
Tom from Brighton.
I tried very hard not to say Plancus and slightly failed there. Reading Caesar, Camilla and Chorus in Act 5 is...
I don't know how to go after that. Hi, I'm Greg. Looking forward to just seeing how virtuous she was.
Indeed. And then hopefully we will be joined by Liza a little later on. But reading Chorus in Act 3, Agrippa and Julia today is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I hopefully will be reading nothing except stage directions, which means nothing because there are basically no stage directions. So we're going to dive in without further ado into Act 3, Scene 2. I'm going to ask Lynsey to step in to read Titius, as there is a scene with Caesar, Titius, and Plancus. Three people having some Caesar-type chats. We don't know if this scene directly follows on from the action of the previous scene, or whether there is supposed to be some sort of logical time break. So maybe Octavia has just left the room, or this might be a totally separate time period. Anyway, Caesar, take it away.
Great peers that strive with wisdom's sacred fame to overlive all human memory, show me, for what intent you hither came, what caused you to revolt from Antony.
By our access we nothing else intend, but humbly to beseech your majesty, under your gracious favour to defend our wronged selves from hateful injury. Proud Cleopatra, Egypt's crafty queen, rules Antony, and wrong she cares not where. So insolent her late attempts have been, as no pride-scorning Roman heart can bear. She is become our queen and governor, and we, whose courage fears the force of no man, by servile baseness of our emperor, must be content to stoop unto a woman.
What angel queen rules those Nilean coasts, whose beauty can so overrule men's minds? What goddess can command the man that boasts to equal Julius in his high designs?
If in those gifts by nature we enjoy unto Octavia's sacred majesty, she is but comparable any way. Be never Romans so disgraced as we, but for her artificial ornaments, for pomp, for pride, for superfluity, for all the excess that folly represents, she doth exceed the height of vanity. Her sunburnt beauty cannot please his sight, that hath a mind with any reason fraught, but 'tis her siren tongue that doth delight, her crafty Circe's wit which hath him caught. As when from Athens Niger made return, and did relate the empress' intent, which he of purpose had in charge to learn, and did her princely gifts to him present, and further did the truth discovering words Octavia's well-deserved praise frame, an argument which to that the queen affords a furious blast to raise a jealous flame. Then did she nothing unattempted leave, that art mort frame or mort well devised, which mort his mind of reason quite bereaved, and thus she straight began to sirenize. She pines her body with the want of food, and she mort seemed to languish for his sake, and by her gestures, which be understood how from his absence she her death doth take. Her deep lamenting looks fixed in his face in silent terms presents an earnest suit, as who would say, "Oh, pity my hard case, whom violence of passion maketh mute." Then would she stand of purpose in his way, in any place where he should passage make, and there, as though unwillingly to bewray what bitter grief she inwardly did take, down from her eyes distills a crystal tide, which at his coming she would dry again, and suddenly would turn her head aside as though unwilling to reveal her pain. Thus in his presence, ravished with joy, she smiles and shows what mirth she can devise, but in his absence drowned with annoy. She seems to take her life from those his eyes, then mermaid-like his senses she invades, with sweetest nectar of a sugared tongue. Unto her will she even ever him persuades, the force of her words' witchcraft is so strong. Then came the kennel of her flattering crew, who largely paint the story of her death. Like feed attorneys they her suit renew, and hunt Antonius' spirit out of breath. Wherewith assailed, he like a man enchanted, to make her know she need not to misdoubt him, or like to one with some mad fury haunted, assembleth all the people round about him, in that first city royalized by fame, by the great Macedonian monarch builded, of whom it took its beginning, birth, and name, where on a high tribunal seat, which yielded a large prospect, were placed 2 chairs of gold, one for himself, another for her grace. The humbler seats which mort her children hold, of such like metal in the self same place. There he established Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, Cyprus, and Lydda, and that his bounty mort the more be seen, he joined thereto the lower Syria. Caesaron, heir apparent to her grace, was constituted king of that same place, same lands, his own 2 sons by her which there in place, attended with great troops of martial bands. These 2 the mighty king of kings he called, and to the eldest gave Armenia, the country of Medina, and forthwith installed him regent of the kingdom of Parthia. To Ptolemy he gave Phoenicia and all the territories there adjoining, the Upper Syria, the Cilicia, unto them both peculiar guards assigning, A Median grown the elder of them were, and all the Armenian soldiers so instructed, accomplishing the charge they had before, about him came, and thence they him conducted. In Macedonian robes the other stands, in distance from his brother little space. About him came the Macedonian band, and guarded safe his person from the place. These things proclaim the trumpet's loudest voice, unto the people's ears forthwith imparted. Whereat some frown, some murmur, some rejoice, whilst he with his immortal queen departed.
Immortal. Why you said she was not such?
Not she, but her attire did claim this much.
Was her attire so admirable then?
Scorning the baseness of us mortal men, clad like the goddess Isis she did go, then what hard heart would not have thought her so?
Oh, sorry. When that Apollodorus on his back a flock bed did to Julius Caesar bring, with thongs of leather trussed up like a sack, as though there had been need of such a thing. Where was the goddess when this came to pass?
She, noble she, was riding on her ass.
When Antony about the streets doth run, listening at each man's window in the night, to hear what in the house is said or done, with what strange noises, passions, and with strange noises, passengers affright, where is this goddess, then so highly blessed?
She ambles after to laugh at the jest.
Oh, and shall our state maintain their hateful pride? Shall bleeding Rome procure their wanton peace? 'Tis time we stood a remedy provide, and their ambition speedily suppress.
What gilded baits of sin do still procure our miss, and seek our souls to win from their intended bliss. Even nature's self doth draw, and force us still to slide, and violate the law, which reason makes our guide, of pleasures we allow, which do our thraldom bring, when starveling virtue now is scarcely judged a thing, the one a poor conceit, the other proved a king. If that it be so sweet to tread the path of sin, and so exceeding meet, we should not walk therein. O nature most unkind, that proves weak reason's foe, O reason too blind, that crosseth nature so. Three mal-seducing foes conduct false errors train, misleading most of those which virtue's praise would gain, whose force unless we foil, we labor all in vain. The examples of the most, which most do take least care to anchor on the coast, where sacred virtues are, sweet sirenizing tongues, in flattery most expert, whose ill-persuading songs our senses do pervert, and men's injurious deeds do cause us to digress. Our error fury breeds when wrongs our minds oppress. These treason's working mates still work our great distress. Examples make us bold to tread the doubtful way, which we before were told would lead us quite astray. Persuasions kindly move and win us to do ill, whose poison when we prove we poisoned, love is still. But injury more strong doth fiercely us incite, by suffering to do wrong, forgetful of the right. All these thrice virtuous queen assail thee with their might. Who can vile deeds despise, and flattering tongues neglect? With malice temporize, as wisdom doth direct. Give him the laurel crown, triumphant victors wear, the titles of renown which virtue's monarchs bear. And thou, most glorious queen, these traitor foes repel, that virtue may be seen in that your sex to dwell, and bravely vaunt thy worth where he most basely fell.
And thus ends Act 3. Just got a sort of sense of where we are. Let's have a down on Cleopatra and Antony there in front of Caesar. Obviously, Caesar would like a certain narrative to be placed here, Plancus drifts a bit, I think, from what his Caesar wants at the end. I quite like the way he's saying, "Hang on, immortal? Did I thought you said she wasn't immortal? Oh no, just look that way. Just look that way. It was a good show. Not really, Caesar." At which point Caesar really lays into the narrative of Antony and Cleopatra. Thoughts from the room, for those who were here before and those who are new, like most of you. Yes, there's very much a question of sin. There's other people doing sin, like Cleopatra and Antony, as opposed to more stolid, serious, virtuous type people, and that's really what the play is pushing on. Rachael.
I don't know. This just brings up like wounds of civil war for me. That this pushing of the wrongdoing morally of Antony. That this is like another civil war for Rome. And maybe a production could play it where, Octavius really does want to fight Antony because he's, they're both ambitious, and Antony's got, he's competing with the empire in Rome. And maybe this moral whatever is just an excuse, his sister's broken up marriage is just an excuse to go after his main rival. So it's not so like morality play.
Liza, welcome to the room. Liza, say hello to everyone reading Byllius and Chorus in Act 4.
Hello, everyone. I am Liza, as literally everyone here knows, and to the two people listening, hello to you too. So this is an Antony and Cleopatra play without Cleopatra in it.
Yep.
Because if she did appear, she would upstage the heroine, Virtuous Octavia.
Well, also, to be fair, Antony isn't in it either.
Wait, so,
Yeah, it's Octavia. It's about Octavia, and maybe Caesar. It's very much the Roman.
But Octavia's actual husband, Antony, is not in it.
No. He's always sending messages about don't come, don't arrive, just stay where you are. It's fine. I'm definitely not sleeping with Cleopatra. That there's a lot of that going on, and Octavia it's all about Octavia's response and Caesar's response to what's happening elsewhere.
So what's interesting is I don't know how this compares in date to, for example, Samuel Daniel's Cleopatra. Or any of the other Cleopatra plays. I wonder if it's a response, perhaps, to those plays or to the publicity that Cleopatra gets, saying, okay, what about this other heroine? What about Octavia? She's very much like a Cornelia figure, perhaps. She's not widowed yet, but spoilers, she might be.
I think, to be fair, the fate of Antony has been well spoiled by now.
Well, someone might have been neglecting their history and theater from the last 1,000 years. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm fairly certain there is a sort of response to certain of this kind of type play, but which ones are post and which predate it, I'm not sure off the top of my head. But yeah, that's a reasonable shout. Whether I think Samuel Daniels might be little No, I'm fairly certain it's earlier. I'm gonna, off the top of my head, just say that while I rustle around and try and find something that will tell me the actual date.
So in Daniel's play, we had the phenomenon that almost every character in that play plays Cleopatra because they all relate things that she's said, and they all quote her at length, so everyone gets to be Cleopatra for a space. And it seems like Plancus's speech, when he describes how alluring Cleopatra is, and how theatrical she is, and how entertaining she is, like, depending on who's playing Plancus, that's a really nice, that speech seems like a really nice opportunity for an actor. And I know this is tragedy and we can't have fun because fun is illegal.
Yeah,
but
well, it's clearly anti-fun, this play, isn't it? It's really not keen on it at all. Samuel Daniel Cleopatra is about 5 years. 5 years? 5 years earlier. So yeah, I think it's definitely riffing on that. And Cornelia, the kids' translation of Cornelia, is also a few years earlier than this. So I think it's riffing on both those texts to some degree. I think that's a reasonable shout. And certainly, it's all within that sort of wider neoclassical thing. And of course, the tragedy of Antony as well, which obviously precedes the Cleopatra. So I'm going to have to move us on because we need to get into Act 4 and get a little deeper into the text. But hold on to any thoughts you may have, as Act 4 is we have Octavia, we have Mecoenas, we have Agrippa, and we have Caesar. But it all starts off with Octavia, and maybe the other people enter to her, or maybe everyone's all on at the same time. I don't know. Anyway, Octavia, take it away.
You haughty lords, that bury death and fate in living monuments of lofty fame, whose worthy praise doth claim the boundless date wherewith eternity doth blaze her name, 'gainst whom raise you these forces in such haste? 'Gainst whom lead you this danger-threatening power? Doth hateful Hannibal your confines waste, or Brennus' sword your lives seek to devour? No, no, my lords, this your concealed design, resounding echoes of most strange debate, with tragic tidings filled these ears of mine, that poured on me the storm of all your hate. Never since princely hand of Silvia's son laid the foundations of these stately towers, did sharp mischance so much eclipse the sun of our good fortune with such fatal lowers. But if that wisdom ever found a place within your souls which beautifies your praise, now show the same, and save from high disgrace our bleeding honour and death-breathing joys. You know how blood maintains the life of wars, as doubtful as dear bought the victory. Man's destiny is chained by unknown stars to happy joys or mournful misery. If you triumph, you conquer not your foes, but neighbours, kinsfolks, and your dearest friends, whose wounds bleed shame and deep heart-piercing woes. Instead of conquest, this is your amends. But if my lord obtain the laurel wreath, and fortune smile on him with like success, what fatal tempests furious rage will breathe from his heart's cave, yourselves may easily guess. You know when touch of honour wings his mind, what lion thoughts tire on his haughty soul. Where wronged valour reigns, 'tis hard to find such pity as may honour's pride control. Then sith your course to lose yourselves is bent, to lose your lives or purchase living shame, let wisdom's eyes blind error's faults prevent. With ease a spark, with pain is quenched a flame. Be advocates for me to Caesar's grace, and stop in time the current of his hate. Let gentle pity in your minds find place. When swords have pleaded, words will come too late. You know my fortune ever hath been such as dazzled envy's eyes with honour's shine. But since Antonius hath augmented much this sovereignty and great estate of mine, since nature, fortune, birth, and majesty in fields of glory stir up civil wars, which of them most should raise my dignity and lift mine honour nearest to the stars, since these two emperors, whose princely hands do sway the sceptre of the Roman state, the one my brother, linked in nature's bands, the other is my spouse and loving mate. Since heavens themselves did in my life provide to show the map of their felicities, this Rome, my lords, and all the world beside, make me the object of their wondering eyes. Thus I, that was more happy than the rest, and did excel in glory and renown, with more than most disgrace shall be suppressed. No fall like his that falleth from a crown. And that which nature grants the meanest wight, they cannot lose which have the conquest won. Yet with this strange dilemma works my spite. Whosever win, Octavia is undone. Great Empress, this bright sun can witness well, so can these heavens before whose powers I stand. Against our minds Caesar doth us compel. This enterprise you see to take in hand. But for myself, and if the case be such, that but report is author of this jar, if Caesar's honour may be free from touch of any stain, relinquishing the war, I'll do my best, and what I may persuade, to lay down arms, wherein if I prevail, a perfect league of friendship shall be made, that may the fury of this tempest quail. And pardon me, dear sovereign, though my speech include exceptions in this doubtful wise, I may not Caesar move, nor him beseech, what may his majesty disroyalize. This said, behold my hand, my sword, my soul, here humbly prostrate at your princely feet. What you command, let none dare to control. This Caesar will, and this we think most meet.
Madame, your speech, I think, doth not extend to the disparagement of your own blood, and sooner shall my life have final end than I refuse to do your highness good. Though last my speech, yet second unto none, is my desire to effectuate your will. But lo, where Caesar comes himself alone, arm we our tongues with words, our words with skill.
Fair issue of renowned Octavius' race, my second self, Rome's glorious empress, behold us all assembled here in place to work your safety and your wrongs redress. Your lord, Antonius, as we hear, doth threat to power sharp storms of deep revenging ire upon our heads, and make the imperial seat his sole possession, hence retire. But let him know, though finely he pretend to gild injustice with the prince's name, though he triumph in words, yet ere I end what he begins, he may repent the same.
My good Lord, high do but ignite the flame of valor, in incensed minds. Leave arms, my lord, and let us treat of peace. Who best doth speed in war, small safety finds. Full well the world your noble worth hath known. Let not new dangers needless trophies raise. Let not the effect of hateful deeds be shown against my lord, who may deserve your praise.
Shall he be praised that is become our foe, stain of our name, foil of the Roman state? A servile man, contriver of our woe, and from all honour doth degenerate? Nay, what is more, 'tis said he doth pretend to work our ruin and our fatal end.
And foul suspicion then and false report in wisdom's confines hold so large a place, that it can foil our reason in such sort to fly the good and work his own disgrace? The ancient Romans wont to draw their swords to purchase honour of their stoutest foes, but you, whose grounds are vain surmised words, by seeking honour shall your honours lose. Fame hath two wings, the one of false report, the other hath some plumes of verity. Why then should doubtful rumour raise a fort of mortal hate against my lord and me? Suppose he raised, as you have done, a power he to defend, not to offend his friend. The heavens forbid that any fatal hour should your proceedings turn to unhappy end. Unhappy, no, he never falls amiss that foils his foe before his final end. High honour, not long life, the treasure is, which noble minds without respect defend. The prize of honour is not always blood.
'Tis honour all whose end imports our good.
Oh, wretched state where men make haste to die.
True valour feels nor grief nor misery.
He is your brother, be not then unkind.
Oh, justice, not pity, fits a prince's mind.
He hath done nothing, spare an innocent.
Oh, he doth too much that bears a false intent.
You both are strong, and both will buy it dear.
I am armed with his justice, know not how to fear.
Oh, Caesar, shall my heart be made a stage for you to play a bloody tragedy? Shall fierce misfortune, breathing spiteful rage, make me vice-regent of all misery? If both of you, misled in error's maze, do seek revenge of misconceived wrongs, for your own sakes out of your fancies raise the spots of malice grafted with your tongues. But if mischance have offered disgrace to either party, oh, let me entreat that for my sake kind pardon may deface a fault so small with breath of words made great.
Bright lamp of virtue, honour's living flame, whosoever win, you can no loss sustain. Whom partial fortune lists to crown with fame, his be the day, the triumph, and the gain. The victor must either be your own lord, or else your brother, who will both consent to try their fortunes with the dint of a sword, but shield you as the world's chief ornament. If both we fall, which hap the heavens forbid, or that survive unsubject to your will. Your birth, your state, your virtues are not hid, but known and loved, and will be honoured still. No ear so deaf which have not heard your name, whose ears have heard, their minds your word admire, whose minds admire, their hearts love doth inflame, and wins them subject to your own desire. No perils threaten you, you need not fear.
But many do, and I their burden bear.
Oh, 'tis reason I none else my grief sustain.
And I'm going to pause there just to give, before Lynsey dies into a long speech, just to give you a little in-breath, because Octavia's already done quite a lot of talking, but we've got more of this discussion between. So yeah, it starts off with Octavia appealing to the various lords, senators, etc., before the appearance of Caesar, saying, you'll be on my side, won't you? That seems to be that. And then Caesar arrives. And as of yet, nobody else has attempted to step in on your side. But that may change shortly. Thoughts in the room? How are we feeling this exchange of still fighting for not having a civil war? Is broadly speaking what Octavia is going for here. But other thoughts in the room? How's it? How's the debate going for you? Don't make me talk constantly. Liza.
So it seems like Octavia, she's doing her best to make peace when Caesar wants to use her as an excuse to make war. And I did like that line, "Shall my heart be made a stage for you to play a bloody tragedy?" And it's like, don't make my life the stage for your drama, Caesar. She's trying to get Caesar not to go on the attack, but he really wants to.
Every so often the text does throw us some really nice little lines and things. I do. Octavia has had this kind of structured line before, but I do like "Behold my hand, my sword, my soul." There's some nice little things in there. Arm we our tongues with words, our words with skill. Lynsey.
Yes, just sort of impressed so far with how strong and resourceful and intelligent and well-reasoned Octavia is. I mean, she's, obviously the virtuous Octavia, but she's not a sort of, sort of that kind of virtuous thing. I think she has quite a lot of sinew about her so far.
Yeah, because we know from earlier that the stepping between Caesar and Antony much earlier and basically talking them out of conflict then. Mm-hmm. So this is another attempt which we actually see. The last time was reported. This time we actually see Octavia in action. In a public context. We saw Octavia in the previous scenes talking to Caesar in private. And this is the public oration. This is the public face of these people. Rachael.
No, I was gonna say to that, if because she's cut. There's so much. There's that the way the writer is writing her today feels so much different than when we first went into it. And Angela brought that up, that at the end of the last session, that what we're really seeing today, it's what's developing today out of her character. And so I wonder, like, the problems we were having the other day when reading this, does it come from characters like Camilla and the other characters that she's dialoguing with? Because there's such a strong relationship here between her and her brother, and he's very politically savvy, and she's you get to the way she's talking today, you get to begin to ask yourself, so why is her husband leaving for Cleopatra? Because she's as much of this strong woman too. Like, she's not a delicate, like, pushover type person. And I just wonder if having the Roman ladies, these random Roman ladies, is what kind of held it back, because there's some weird, biting sexism going on there, where this is more political. We're getting into more political stuff.
Mm. And we, one of the things we got with Octavia's voice does change depending on the context she's speaking in. This is very public speech. This is someone making a debate, whereas we had some of the speeches that Octavia was making last time, where it's going, should I do this or should I do that, or should I stay? Should I walk away? What's the best course of action that I can take in this complex situation? And it's much more. There's a lot of opportunities to sort of pause midline and change direction, do this and do that. Whereas here, this is much more, considered. This is the case I'm going to put forward to lots and lots of people. So it's the same voice, but being used in a different way. Tom.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, it could do with some direction in the sense of private dialogue and public speaking. Because the whole tone and manner and force of the words would be obviously very different, and would make a nice contrast actually between the public Roman voice and the private Roman voice.
We need to move on, however. We're still mid-scene. I stopped Octavia mid-flow. Octavia and Caesar were mid-discussion. And we continue. Octavia gets to return another counterblast against Caesar's point of view.
Where nature forceth, reason is but vain, and therefore, Caesar, here I thee beseech, by these same sceptre-bearing hands of mine, by these same tears, true witness of my speech, by that same princely port and grace of thine, by all the love thou bear'st to Achaea's ghost, by all the rights that loving minds hold dear, lay arms aside, dismiss this puissant host, let friendly truce release my mind of fear. If not, I'll drown my life in these same tears, and tire with plaints the Pandionian birds, tire the Halcyons with grief that bears too high a strain for highest climbing words. I'll make the sun for pity clothe his steeds in sorrow's livery, and disdain your sight. Force niggard Pluto with my woeful deeds t'entertain my soul's disgraced flight. Else will I fly and shroud my face from shame, where Pindus hides his head amongst the stars, or where ambitious Othrys, wanting flame of heavenly lamps, the clouds' swift motion bars. Aught will I do, before these eyes behold death's visage painted in that princely face, before I'll see captivity lay hold on those fair limbs which merit highest grace, before I'll see their bloody weapons drink the nectar of thy life, or ivory stained with ugly gore. O let me never think or hope till then to have this life maintained. Before that time, death is a welcome guest to my life's lodging. And, O sisters dear, if ever pity dwelt in direful breast, draw not my thread till that news pierce mine ear. How oft, when sleep invites my drowsy eye with nature's curtain to repel the light, and hide my mind from sorrow's tyranny under the darkness of the silent night, shall thy pale ghost, defiled with death's foul hand, stand in my sight, as in the dearest, clearest day. and fury-like armed with black fiery brand, affright my mind and chase dead sleep away. Which being gone, fierce sorrow's cruel claws seize on my waking thoughts like tigers fell, and grip my heart with sharp, tormenting paws, that 1,000 times death's rigour doth excel.
O perfect virtue, gracing womankind, invincible Octavia, cease to plain. Oh, had Antonius half so good a mind, no discourse could betwixt us two remain. My lords, what think you? How may we proceed? High honour cries revenge upon our foes, and yet Octavia, crossing this our deed, cannot resolve which of us should lose.
I think it is a brave and princely thing, with fire and sword, to ruinate our foes. But greater glory is it for a king to save his subjects from war's common woes. 'Tis wisdom, noble Caesar, must advance our state beyond the reach of fortune's arm, not fierce revenge which works effects by chance, and glories most when most it worketh harm. And valor, such as doth contemn all fear, and gild our acts with honor and renown. With gentle clemency our deeds endear, and mount with virtue where chance throws us down.
The rarest thing a prince fame to raise is to excel those that are excellent, all other to surmount in virtue's praise, and be his kingdom's chiefest ornament. Make quiet peace within his coasts remain, and succour those that live in great distress, from bloody slaughter ever to refrain. With time and wisdom passion rages suppress. These are the wings directing virtue's flight. This is the fuel feeding honour's flame. This is the path that leads to heaven aright, and sun-bright beams that gild brave Caesar's name.
Pity, my lords, is often like a mask that hides our eyes from seeing what is just, inviting any to undertake the task to work our woes and execute their lust. For to neglect the cause we have begun were to betray ourselves unto our foes, where keeping strong though no exploit be done, yet gaining nothing, nothing shall we lose. Why? You're ill-informed of Antony, and his attempts exceed your knowledge far. I fear me when you know as much as I, you'll plead as fast to prosecute the war. But let's see, a stranger hastes into our sight with further news, and if I judge aright.
Thrice noble Caesar, hither am I sent, having in charge from great Mark Antony, the ambassage of his pleasure to present before Octavia and thy majesty. First, he commands Octavia to depart, out of his house, and leave all that is his. The reason why he list not to impart, it must suffice that such his pleasure is. He likewise will thy highness knowledge take, how much he scorns thou shouldst his will withstand, and thereof means with fire and sword to make a perfect demonstration out of hand.
Well, Antony, our confines then invade with civil wars, contriver of our woe. Great reason preparation should be made for to withstand so puissant a foe.
500 sail of warlike ship he brings, wherewith the frothing ocean he scours, and in his army are 8 foreign kings, 8 kings in person, with their mighty powers. 100,000 well-armed foot are led under Canidius, their chief general. 12,000 horse most strongly furnished. All these are known, and known these are not all.
And now, my lords, is this, think you, a time to talk of clemency or of delay? Is not this mischief in his chiefest prime before we could the speedy spring bewray? What saith Octavia to these tidings strange? Are our conjectures upon falsehood grounded? Can this suffice your settled thoughts to change? Are not our lives with mischief's ocean bounded?
Had I so many tongues to paint my woes, as ever silent night had shining eyes, yet could not all their eloquence disclose the throes of grief which do my mind surprise. But would to God this world of misery most presently be trebled unto me, so that from imminent calamity my dearest brother Caesar mote be free. For me, long since I well discerned the storm, and sought by all means how I mote prevent it. But sith no wit can Antony reform, oh, 'tis not I, but he, that will repent it. I feared the stroke before I felt the wound, but now resolved the worst of chance to bide. True fortitude doth in my soul abound. My honour scorns the height of fortune's pride. The worst that can befall me is but death. And oh, how sweet is this life's sacrifice on virtue's altar that expires this breath, and in the arms of innocency dies. They only fear, and only wretched are, from whose bad lives stained with impiety, their dying fame doth to the world declare most shameful stories of foul infamy. But those that know not, let them learn in me that virtuous minds can never wretched be.
My lords, I will ye presently proclaim Mark Antony a foe unto our state, that all his sovereignties ye straight reclaim, and all his dignities annihilate. We will not see the Roman Empire shine by any servile mind to be defamed. To manage steel our nature doth incline, of women's wanton toys we are ashamed. And therefore with such haste as may be fit, a matter that imports our dearest blood, we'll meet Antonius, if the heavens permit, and what we say, there will we make it good. Adieu, Octavia, and yourself prepare to run what course of fortune I approve. If happy stars to us allotted are, I'll never be forgetful of your love.
Honour it thy steps, and till I see the period of my world's declining state, I'll never to myself a traitor be, but seek the means to stay your mortal hate.
Earth-ruling heavenly powers, great Jove's immortal mates, that from your crystal bowers direct all mortal states, and us like actors do dispose to play what parts you list to impose. Must we, poor we, consent to call you ever just, though you our hearts torment even after your own lust, and for each drop of hoped joy pour down whole tempests of annoy? And that which is much more, look, what we best do deem doth vex our minds more sore than that we least esteem, and that which nature saith is best by trial yields us smallest rest. Who doth not wish to wear the terror-breeding crown, and direful sceptre bear as badge of high renown? Yet who more justly do complain that they the brunt of woes sustain? Stand whoso list for me in highest slippery place, Though great their glory be, yet greater their disgrace. And who so subject to mischance as those whom fortune doth advance? These base earth-creeping mates proud envy never spies, when at the greatest states her poisoned quiver flies. Each tempest doth turmoil the seas, when little lakes have quiet ease. Not those that are bedight with burnished glistering gold, whose pomp doth steal our sight with wonder to behold, taste smallest sweet without much gall, nor find true joys within their call. This did the heavens impose, not that they are unjust, but for to punish those who glory in their lust. And our misdeeds procure us still to seek our good amongst much ill. A monster honor is whose eyes are virtue's flame, his face contempt of this which we pale death do name. His lion heart naught else doth fear, but crowing cock of shame to hear. His wings are high desires, his feet of justice frame, food dangerous aspires, his seat immortal fame. Only the train of envy's plumes with others' growth itself consumes.
So, after a lengthy debate session where Octavia has effectively got the room, have fought hard, Agrippa, etc., they've stood by her position, Caesar's on the back foot, and then enter Byllius. Does Caesar know he's coming? Is all the report true? I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm sure the military stuff is moderately true, but I'm just wondering about the whole. I want the house back. I'm having the car, and you know, and all that stuff. I just wonder whether, you know, I don't think the text is actually would be going in that direction. But it's just one of those things. I don't trust Caesar. It feels like he's loaded the dice. He knows what his sister's up to. I wonder. Thoughts from the room about this, Liza?
Well, I mean, if we take Byllius at face value, if Antony is about to declare war on Caesar, it sort of makes sense for him to get Caesar's sister out of his household so that she can't either be a spy or a hostage, or have Caesar think that she's a hostage. That's the best face I can put on it. Byllius coming in really ruins all Octavia's hard work from earlier in the scene. And I'm sorry, Octavia, I screwed up.
Yeah, and I liked the way Greg actually did the Caesar bit of following that, of just going, well, sister, where's your arguments now? What do you make of this? And I also love the way the Byllius, I put it in the chat, but you know, it goes full Donald Rumsfeld there. All these are known, and known these are not all. There are known unknowns and etc. etc. Yeah, there's something really interesting going on here, and the ebb and flow of this. I like there's a moment where Octavia's talking of "Oh, sisters dear." I was wondering, you know, are the various handmaids that we've seen earlier, are they actually in the room, or was that a god thing that I missed? Lynsey, then Rachael.
Yeah, no, I noticed that as I was speaking it, and wondered if she was talking to, I mean, which sisters might they be, you know, we could take our pick. But I'm not, it would be strange to kind of suddenly bring them in when they have nothing else to say, unless she feels like she really has lost, you know, she's lost the room, as it were, and so she's appealing to the only people that might still be on her side, possibly.
I mean, that's such a fabulous speech. Actually, there's so many lines I was just putting marks next to. I really liked some of what Octavia was throwing out there. It felt really effective.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, I'm just kind of spitballing about the sisters. I don't know who they are, but
Right. We don't have to have answers here. All we need to do is ask the questions. Rachael, then Greg.
I thought it was the three sisters who have the those little wires of fate, of life and death, but I can't remember what. And oh sister, if oh sisters dear, if pity dwelt in direful breast, draw not my thread till the news pierce mine ears. So I thought she was talking about the threads of fate in those three sisters who could cut her life short.
We're drifting towards a supernatural rather than real. Greg.
Yes, Rachel got there just before me because I couldn't find a reference, and I'm fearful of saying the line I'm thinking of because I can't remember where it comes from. But there is a definite. It suggests the Fates as they were known, not the Graeae. They were a different lot. Don't get your ancient Greek crones muddled up. That's all I say.
Demarcation, mate. Demarcation.
Yeah, if you think it's ones with the tooth and the eye, it's not them, it's the other ones. Well, there you go.
Yeah. But then Octavia pivots, and everybody's we're all on the same team now. That's where we are. So, Act 5 looks like the crowing cock of shame is making its voice heard. Other thoughts in the room before we go into Act 5?
I was just going to say Caesar does feel like he's gone to rhetoric school. He's a nasty piece. Well, that last speech of his was so well put together. I love the sort of Octavia. Just prepare yourself.
Yeah, again, putting the stress on what course of fortune I approve. It's like we've seen an interesting shift of power here. If Octavia's been, acquiring too much power from his point of view, and this is the opportunity to effectively take it down a peg. So there's something quite nasty about that at that moment, actually. Considering where Octavia's been placed in this as the central figure. Caesar didn't turn up until Act 3. Augustus. Rachael.
I know Sylvia yesterday was meant to be some sort of like Cleopatra stand-in. I feel like Octavia really is a foil to Cleopatra. Because she's got this strength too to stand up to an emperor. And there is something about her in these scenes that isn't really like what a Roman woman, should be on paper, which isn't, she's not acting like what the ideal Roman woman is, which is just, have children and really don't speak much. So like in the way that Cleopatra is, foreign or exotified for not being Roman, there is some, foreignness with the idea of how Octavia is acting. And how you just said that Octavius might feel she has too much power, that his calling her empress, and her taking Antony or Antonius's side up until now might have him looking at her in a certain way, like she is rivaling for the throne a bit, for his throne that he feels he's already claimed.
Yeah, I like these readings. These are good things. Let us go into Act 5. We're going to return to some characters who we haven't really touched on for a little while. Julia, who hasn't said an awful lot. We're going from Act 5, Scene 1. Geminus, who hasn't said anything for a while. And Camilla, who's said quite a lot. Quite a judgmental personage. But yeah, essentially the various figures surrounding Octavia. Ladies of her circle, and Geminus, who's got some sort of inside track on things. I think he's listed as a captain. So we're going to get some news, presumably, in what's happened between Act 4 and Act 5. Act 5, Scene 1, Julia, Geminus, and Camilla.
Hath Geminus beheld the Egyptian queen, the author of the troubled world's distress? Hast thou her gifts in rare perfection seen, that makes Antonius' senses thus digress? Tell us, is she so admirable fair, that Italy hath none which may come nigh her? Doth she all beauties else so much impair, or else indeed doth partial fame belie her? Have those her eyes so rare an influence to hold and captivate men's senses so, that foiling wit and reason's best defense, they ravished must needs themselves forgo?
I know not what may seem fair in your sight, because some like what others discommend. But for myself, and if I judge aright, speaking of Cleopatra as a friend, the fairest thing that in her may be seen is that she is a lady and a queen. Madam, that sunburnt coast yields not a face which with the Roman beauties may compare. There mought be found 1,000 in this place, whose natural perfections are more rare.
How passing strange it seems that Antony should leave the paragon of nature's pride and follow her whose shameful luxury doth make the world his folly to deride. Whence should it spring that such a thing should be? Is this his folly, or the heavens' decree?
His fault, no doubt, and crosseth nature's laws.
And I think not, for nature is the cause. By nature we are moved, nay, forced to love, and being forced, can we resist the same? The powerful hand of heaven we wretches prove, who strike the stroke, and poor we bear the blame.
Love sure from nature took his birth by right, but love of what?
Of beauty love's delight.
And what is beauty?
First say, what is love?
Oh, love's a desire of what doth liking move.
Desire doth spring from what we wish and want, doth lose himself in winning of his saint. Enjoying doth that humor quite supplant, and therefore cannot this love's nature paint. If love were a desire, as you do guess, sith none desires that which he doth enjoy, we could not love the thing we do possess, for why, enjoying would our love destroy. But this is false, and you have judged amiss.
Speak you the truth, whose judgment better is.
I think this love a deep affection sure, wrought by the instinct of nature's hidden might, which in our hearts in union doth procure with that which perfect seems unto our sight. Such is that love which in us doth arise, when such a beauty we do chance to see, as with our nature best doth sympathize, which nature faulty is, and not poor we.
Well, what is beauty?
That which liketh best.
Oh, which liketh whom?
Someone above ye rest.
Why? Some do like what others disallow, some love what others hate, and few there are in whom a like affection doth grow of any one thing, though the same be rare. Were beauty then such as you here do name, one thing should be and not be beautiful, one thing should be and yet not be the same, and that methinks were strange and wonderful. I rather think these outward beauties grow from just proportion and right symmetry of these same gifts which nature doth bestow upon us all in our nativity.
Indeed, we see a mixture far more fine in some than others, wrought by nature's frame, to whom the praise of beauty we ascribe. Yet do not all alike affect the same. Now, if this were the object of our love, we all should like someone that were most fair, who should alone most deep affection move, whiles vulgar minds mought drown in deep despair. But as no woman easily can endure to be deprived of beauty's lovely praise, so is there none so much deformed, sure, that in some minds affection doth not raise. There's none so fair whose beauty all respect, although we were enforced it should be so. Some nothing fair, whom we must needs affect, though reason, wit, and all the world say no.
And what should be the cause of all this same?
I think because we lodge in nature's frame. Look how the lodestone draws naught else but steel, though metals far more precious are about it. Yet this, as his fit subject seems to feel his power attractive, and moves not without it, or as in diverse instruments we see, when any one doth strike a tuned string, the rest which with the same and concord be, will show a motion to that senseless thing. When all the other neither stir nor play, although perhaps more musical than they, so are our minds, in spite of reason's nay, strained with the bent of nature's sympathy, whose powerful force no wit, no art can stay. And if you ask a farther reason why in these two things, but show the cause of both, and then I'll tell you why we love and loathe. Now, if the power of nature be so strong that even senseless things yield thereunto, why should we endure so great a wrong to bear the blame of that which others do? What living man can cease himself to be, and yet as possible as to refrain from that whereto our natures doth agree, and spite of us, doth us thereto constrain? Who can be angry with the senseless steel for cleaving unto this hard-hearted thing? Or blame that which can neither hear nor feel for moving to the other sounding string? If these may be excused by nature's laws, oh, how much more should we be free from blame, within whose tender hearts affection draws such deep characters leading to the same?
Is beauty, then, sole object of our love?
That which seems so, doth our affections move?
I ever thought that virtue had been best.
We praise that most, but yet esteem it least.
Why disesteemed whose worth is so well known?
To show that vice the world hath overgrown.
The name is often hard in each man's mouth.
The thing more rare than eagles in the south.
Oh, the thing contempt can we the name esteem?
Yes, all that are not such as all would seem. But since this is the beauty of the mind, and nothing fits our natural discourse, let us excuse for Antonius find. Let us excuses for Antonius find, and to our former purpose have recourse.
No, Julia, no. Your harvest is too long for such a simple crop as you receive. You may not thus persist the truth to wrong, and with your wit the world seek to deceive. But Lord, how willing are we to invent and find our... But Lord, how willing are we to invent and find our coverts to obscure our sin, as though to hide the same and not repent. Could us preserve from being drowned therein? 'Tis true that nature did these buildings frame, and true that they to nature's power are thrall, and true that imperfections foil the same, and true that we by nature's weakness fall. And this is true, that God unnatured all and gave us wisdom to suppress our will. He gave us perfect reason to recall affection's scouts from following what is ill. Why, we are men, and this same spark divine our trooping thought should marshal in such wise that no effect from reason should decline, nor rebel passion in our hearts arise. The instinct of nature, which doth all things move, bids love, whereas you like without regard. But piety saith, where it is where it is lawful love, or else hell torments shall be your reward.
And thus ends that scene, which it sort of narratively isn't moving the story forward at all. It's doing I mean, he's talking about Cleopatra and things, and he's talking about beauty, and it's doing some interesting things. But it's a bit like the Sylvia scene we had earlier. It's thematically interesting, but it doesn't necessarily move the plot along any further. We've just gone war, and now we have this debate about beauty. I wonder whether structurally it might work better earlier in the play. It sort of comes a bit out of the blue where it is here. But yeah, thoughts from the room on this little debate sequence, Rachael.
We were talking about the first scene last time and how that might be nicer later. Maybe this scene that we just did could be moved to the top of the play and then have that other scene following it. Because this whole discourse about, this and that, and then them playing Octavia up to the sky afterwards has a different tone to it of trying to, save her ego, because this is the gossip of the court and everybody, knows about it. And it's quite an open secret or something like that.
Yeah, and then that sort of shifts the dynamic of how that opening works, because Cleopatra doesn't get mentioned for ages. That would be quite nice if it's basically they all know about it, but they don't say anything in front of Octavia. Oh yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah, I agree with Rachael. This scene really sounds like the kind of character exposition you would get before a character has come on stage. And of course, Cleopatra never does enter. She can only be talked about. But yeah, it would be nice to have this. The tone of this seems much lighter than some of the other scenes, and it would be nice to have at the top of the play.
Or somewhere else in the mix. It's there's lots of options, because some of the scenes do seem not quite like they're structured. I said last time it felt like you need to sort of mush some things around a bit, because it doesn't quite feel, even though it's all sort of chronologically correct, it doesn't feel like everything's happening in the right order, if that makes sense. Any additional thoughts? Otherwise we have 2 more scenes to do, I think. Yes, and an epilogue. We've got one scene which is basically Octavia, Act 5, Scene 2, Octavia and Antony's children, apparently. So some additional peopleage about you, perhaps.
And is it true? Is Antony unkind? Hath this new love of faith and troth bereft him? Can fond affection so obscure his mind that not one spark of honour should be left him? Can he so far forget his own good name as to dishonour all that are about him? Ah, can he not, without a further blame, permit them die that cannot live without him? Come, poor companions of my misery, the issue of the faithless man alive, support the burden of his treachery, whose base revolt our ruin doth contrive. Come, poor beholders of your mother's fall, whose innocence mote greater pity move. Your impious father doth despise us all. Forsaken we must other fortunes prove. Come, poor attendants of a falling state, whose silent sadness doth my grief renew. Yet be you all much more unfortunate, ere any seeds of lewdness rest in you. Come, let us go, and leave this lonely place. Your father's dying love bequeaths you hence. O fly this house as from your own disgrace. 'Tis his command, you should be banished hence. Dead Fulvia, how can thy imperious ghost endure to see thine orphans thus oppressed? Yet of mine honour, though his love be lost, whiles I survive, they shall not be distressed. O Antony, born of no gentle sire, some cruel Caucasus did thee beget. Even senseless things thy senselessness admire, and seem to feel what thou seem'st to forget. Oft have I seen these stones with pity moved, shed dropping tears, lamenting my disgrace, when in thy heart, where it most behooved, no kind remorse could ever find a place. More mild than thee I find each cruel beast, for they but give a small time lasting death. With endless grief my soul thou dost molest, which ever killing never stops my breath. O failing pillar of my falling state, O fading flower of virtue's fairest field, O why shouldst thou so much degenerate, and honour's birthright to dishonour yield? Yield to dishonour all that dear bought wealth, which earthly kings doth in heaven's kingdom place. Let thy mind's treasure fall away by stealth contrive and work thine own disgrace. O Erycina, that my lord did know, as thy fond boy shoots shafts of swift desire, so mighty Jove sharp thunderbolts doth throw, confounding such as from his laws retire. He nursed in sin, sees not his own disgrace, augmenting still our sorrow and his shame. That greatness hides the danger from his face, but yet my care is doubled with the same. The greedy wolf and cruel ravening bear, touched with the extremity of hungry pain, the guiltless cattle furiously do tear, and being fed, from cruelty restrain. But tyrannizing grief preys on the heart, and cloyed with sighs and tears doth still persever. His raging fury nothing may divert, but still fed, is satisfied never. O happy he 1,000 times and more, whose quiet thoughts so mild a calm do gain, that neither hope can force from safety's shore, nor deep despair can sink on mischief's main. But majesty and honour, for these two shall be the only subjects of mine eye. What virtue, faith is just, that will I do. Thus I resolve to live, thus will I die.
Enter Geminus and Byllius.
And are you sure that Antony is slain? May we believe that this report is true?
Why should you wish me to recount again the story that doth double grief renew? Oh, had you but discovered with your eyes the face of woe in all that present were, or heard their doleful noise and shrieking cries, you would have cause to grieve, and not to fear.
What tragic tidings bring these woeful wights, that ring such peals of horror in mine ears? What unknown cause your martial hearts affrights? What silent grief in your sad looks appears?
Did but our words import the sound of woe, to wound your ears withal were double sin. But Sith your highness will it should be so, and that your safety is contained therein, we will not from your grace conceal the same. And though we should, yet time will open all. From Egypt's common woes I lately came, and did bewail Antonius' wilful fall.
Is Antony o'erthrown?
Yes, all is lost. His power and forces wholly are decayed. He is deceived by her he loved most, by Cleopatra, shamefully betrayed. She that taught him first to swim in sin was even the first that drowned his life therein.
Ah, by what means did she my lord abuse?
By such a means as lewd offenders use. For when the wars at first pretended were, and that Antonius with him would not take her, she, fearing lest herself not being there, he haply might be moved to forsake her, she sees Canidius, our chief general, him to persuade that she might present be. He sues, obtains, and we embarked all make joyful haste our woeful end to see. For whiles our powers of equal forces were, and neither side could disadvantage spy, like one that knew a secret cause of fear, out of the army, she began to fly. Lo, how no greatness can our conscience free from inward horror of our wicked deeds, for that same better part of us doth see a greater power, whose justice terror breeds. But he, whose thoughts were to her looks enchained, although the army did not loss sustain, as though for her he had the world disdained, forsakes them all, and after flies amain, whose causeless fear so much dismayed the host who scorned to fight for him which run away, that with small hurt the battle there was lost, and Caesar had the honor of the day. The legions, thus deprived of a guide, themselves to Caesar's clemency submit. Antonius' baseness they do all deride, and think a chamber were for him more fit. But lion-hearted Caesar still proceeds. His strength is doubled, weakened is his foe. Unto Pelusium hastily he speeds, these fugitives may not escape him so. There lay Antonius' navy in the road, who yielded when Augustus' fleet was seen, and likewise showed how Antony abode at Alexandria with this fearful queen, who, seeing thus himself deprived of aid, cries out that Cleopatra hath betrayed him. She, whether guilty or perhaps afraid that from her slaughter nothing could have stayed him, flies from his sight, and falsely sends him word that she, drowned in despair, herself had slain. Wherewith, enraged, he takes a bloody sword, and breathing out these speeches all in vain, O Cleopatra, princess of my heart, and art thou dead? Lo, dying I adore thee. This more than death doth now procure my smart, that wanting courage I went not before thee. With that, yet warm, death-coloured instrument, in his fair breast he did the gate set ope, which to the earth his bloodless limbs hath sent, his dying soul up to the heavens, I hope.
And is he dead?
His better part yet liveth, but to his corpse a tomb sweet quiet giveth.
Oh, poor Prometheus, now I feel thy pains. Grief's greedy vulture feeds upon my heart. Upon my head a shower of mischief rains, and all the heavens conclude to work my smart. O my Antonius, O my lord, my lord, O that Octavia had been slain for thee. O that the heavens would unto me afford, that this my blood mote thy life's ransom be. Mine was the wound thou gav'st that noble breast, that purple stream extracted from my heart. In my deep passions is thy death expressed. Thou felt'st the stroke, but I endure the smart. And oh, that grief did not thus stop my breath, and all my words dissolve in showers of tears. that I mote worthily lament thy death, and catadupa-like dull all men's ears. Unhappy world, the pilgrimage of pain, the stage where mischief acts a direful part. What hast thou had? What dost thou now contain, which but a thought of pleasures mote impart? Not one care-wanting hour my life hath tasted, but from the very instant of my birth, uncessant woes my tired heart have wasted, and my poor thoughts are ignorant of mirth. Look how one wave another still pursueth, when some great tempest holds their troops in chase, or as one hour another's loss reneweth, or posting day supplies another's place. So do the billows of affliction beat me, and hand in hand the storms of mischief go. Successive cares with utter ruin threat me. Grief is enchained with grief, and woe with woe. Yet must I bear it with a patient mind, for why the heavens have this to me assigned.
Inexorable fates that on both high and low your equal rigour show, correcting all estates and stately minds suppressing your favour none may win, no cloak or faults can hide, but needs we must abide the punishment of sin. And hope for no releasing, no greatness may withstand, no words can pity move, but we must all approve the vigour of your hand. Great Jove's decrees expressing, great Jove's decrees which some fate, fortune, chance do name, are not indeed the same, but heaven's eternal doom. Our witless steps directing our witless steps directing their speech exceeds our skill. Their words pierce not our ears, but in our life appears the legend of their will. Our errors miscorrecting, then let the greatest know, dole on their ruin feeds, whilst they obscure vile deeds under a glorious show. The vulgar sort infecting. Octavia, still distressed, doth not to us declare how they most wretched are who are with grief oppressed, but shows what heaven requireth, how through affliction great troubles and annoy we find the doubtful way that leads to virtue's seat, which wisdom's self desireth. In fairest crystal stone let men her trophies show, that all the world may know here liveth such a one as virtue's height aspireth. Sharp grief and sweet delight are giants to approve. If aught may us remove and turn us from the right, thence double error springeth. The weakest wrought his fall, whilst that Octavia true the other did subdue, and purchase therewith all that fame her honour singeth. A monument most rare of pure Arabian gold, the highest worth to unfold, let art for her prepare, who time in triumph bringeth. Time shall endear thy name, with honour's breath make sweet. The garland is most meet for such as win the same. Thy virtue best deserved. Was any speak of worth doth lodge in women's breast, thy praise among the rest be evermore henceforth in noblest minds preserved. Of diamonds most pure, a tomb let angels frame, and there engrave her name for evermore to endure, to eternity reserved.
And now the epilogue.
Our play is done, Now, what your censures are, if with or 'gainst art's industry, the care took by the author and our pains to please, we know not yet, till judgment give us ease. Why should we doubt? This theatre does appear the music Rome of concord, you being here. Let no harsh jarring sound of discord then echo dislike. Claps crown the tragic pen.
Applaud, you bastards. Which is, it's nice. The only bit of the text really does say that this is a performance text as well, that this isn't a closet drama, actually.
Please like this play. We worked
clap.
so hard.
Please clap. Yeah, especially as, we have this ending. I mean, Byllius, by God, read the room, man. Because he really sort of gets into this. Oh yeah, then he calls out on Cleopatra, who he really loves, because he loves her, doesn't love you, and he's dead. Oh yeah, he's so dead. Yeah, sometimes messengers get a bit too into their message. Lynsey.
Yeah, but at least Octavia gets to keep the house now,
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I don't know if that's the takeaway the text is giving us here, but sort of going, well, it's been. I've not had that much luck with husbands. It's que sera. It's been a very sad life. Would be a very sad death, but at least there is symmetry, as a wise man once said. Other thoughts from the room? Rachael.
Some of the animal imagery that we were getting in Octavia's speech when she sees all of Antony's kids, I guess because Caesar's brought them back in chains, she brings up a wolf, and I think that has significance because the founder of Rome is Romulus, and the wolf, I forget the name, Romulus and Remus both suckled off the wolf, and Romulus later on kills Remus, and I think there's some there's something there with that, mythological image of a family, a brother killing a brother, Civil War type stuff, and then even later on calling Caesar lion-hearted, like a lion, like a male lion will kill another lion's cubs to make sure that they can't compete with his own. So there's some, fear there that there's a lot of real fear that she knows is there for them politically.
Other thoughts? It's following on from. It's weird that this scene sort of follows on from the previous scene, but it definitely follows on neatly from Act 4. It's sort of an interesting, fitting conclusion. And yeah, I'm definitely, now that we got to the end of it, I'm definitely feeling that there is a show that can be crafted out of this. But also now that since we've done the tragedy of Antony and the tragedy of Cleopatra, that I'm now thinking that there's an uber show that can be crafted out of these texts, that actually this gives us some material that I kind of feel is a bit lacking in the tragedy of Antony, and and to a degree, a lesser degree in Cleopatra, that actually there is some, either a season of this little trilogy, even though they're not intended to be a trilogy by any stretch of the imagination, perhaps. But they do talk to each other in interesting ways, and that might be a thing. Or, as I say, to sort of create a series effectively out of this material, heavily messed around with, to make the bits fit together. But I really like having Octavia. Having a play about Octavia, which is actually very Octavia heavy, and also has other interesting female roles in it. I mean, they're not always used in the way that we'd like, but it's not just a sausage fest, and that is something that we get with so many of these plays, and in fact, some of the men are clearly deferring to Octavia in a way that seems to clearly piss off Caesar, and that's really interesting as well. Yeah, so there's something really interesting going on with this play. I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, even by the, accepting what neoclassical drama does. It's full of long speeches. We accept that. The ordering of the material is a bit weird. Sometimes it goes a bit far on some things, but there's some good lines in here. There's some really nice lines in here, and there's some really nice material. I appreciate only Rachael can really give an overview of this play apart from me, because everybody else sort of has come in. But yeah, I'm generally I'm a lot more positive about it today than I was yesterday. I was a couple of days ago. But we are now into extra time. I'll start with Lynsey for final thoughts. You were Octavia. How do you find Octavia in the balance of this? I think you've got the better half of the play for Octavia. I think because everything's so pressing, her position comes across quite well, whereas in the first half of the play, she was a bit too virtuous for our liking.
I mean, I need to go back and watch that session because I didn't have time to before today. But I was impressed with her, her reasoning and sort of stoicism in the best sense. I mean, she speaks a lot about woe and grief, particularly towards the end. But I get the feeling from the rhythm of the verse and the language that she chooses that it's a sort of she's this is her fate, and she is, she has a line earlier on about fortitude. I think, I can't remember if that's the word, but just, she is she's very strong, and I think she is even more strong at the end. So I was quite impressed with her, really.
Yeah, it's all consistent as well. It's not like we've just got some cardboard cutter figure who comes on and says, I am terribly virtuous and I will stoically accept everything. Yeah. There does seem to be something going on here.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting after Byllius's speech, in which it is very clear that Antony is dead. But she says, is he dead? It's like that. I just thought that was a very interesting moment of, it's like to herself almost. It's like, can he be dead? Not to risk a quack, but can Antony die? So that sort of thing I thought was interesting.
Yeah, future echoes for a quack there.
Sorry.
That quack has not quacked yet, so there's a quack yet to come. It's a reverse quack. Liza.
Well, I think it's really interesting how we get this report of Antony's death, which, in contrast, compared to a lot of messenger speeches we've been reading recently, is actually kind of concise. But we get this report of Antony's death, and we get no report at all of Cleopatra's death, I think. Okay.
Well, she might not be dead yet.
She probably isn't, or the messenger, as far as the messenger knows.
Yeah.
But it is sort of this play's last bit of shade to throw at Cleopatra is, nobody asked what happened to her. We don't care.
Yeah, I mean, there is the element that all the stuff thrown at Cleopatra is a bit problematic, but it is also consistent with what the Roman position would have been. So there is an internal logic to why they're doing that. It's not just the play standing over it doing that. This is a very one-sided Roman point of view, or at least Octavia-centric, Caesar-centric point of view. Greg. Any historical blunders the playwrights stumbled into? We were really struggling on Tuesday to go, is this right?
Well, whatever his name was in the text, you did pronounce as Mecoenas. The only one I really spotted was, I think they called Octavian Emperor at one point, and he wouldn't have been by this point. He would definitely only have been a common man, but I enjoyed it. I thought Caesar's machinations were rather fabulous. He was a really interesting character, and I find it very interesting that that was only quite briefly into his appearance in Act 3. There hadn't been huge amounts of him before that. I really liked, but the busybody was okay, but she didn't really jump out. But actually, the last chorus was really nice too, tying up in quite a nice way. And I found it interesting that, as you say, the epilogue is really the only evidence that this thing was designed to be performed. It does feel it felt very much like a chamber play until that point. Something lovely to read and do when you were in the drawing room, so to speak, but actually getting it on the stage, not so sure.
And it's a good epilogue. It's one of those, apart from the music Rome of Concord, you could use it in any play, couldn't you? We've got a few epilogues like this, and just going, please like it, please clap. Also, I'm not sure how many epilogues or things where we get references to clapping as well. There's the fear of the boo, or more importantly the hiss. So it's nice to have. Greg biting his tongue there. Lynsey.
This was just, I haven't thought this through, but it occurred to me during that final chorus that could be spoken by many different voices. So perhaps, all the characters, maybe except Octavia, take a phrase, take a sentence or whatever, to conclude the play. Don't know, that just occurred to me while we were reading it.
Yeah, because the chorus is sort of generic in that sense. It says in the list that the chorus of Romans. That's as much as we get. They don't splinter off and talk to characters separately. They are this sort of, they are very choric. So I think they would work quite well as playing around with what voices and who's speaking it. I think that would work really nicely. Rachael, you have been here for the first half of the play. Any final thoughts?
I would like to come back to this for a second look, because it has won me over. I'd also like to read if we ever did like a reading of these, the letters that we're supposed to go back and forth that are down, below the rest of the script.
Oh, yes. I should clarify for the people watching this video, there is also letters between Antony and Octavia that the author has also written. We haven't got that ready yet. I haven't done any text work on it. So there might be more material that we could use, or a separate show that we might be able to play with, where we do actually get to hear Antony's voice. Sorry, Rachael, I cut you off just to clarify. Continue.
Yeah. I'd like to come back, do a second look, read the letters when we can. Today felt like a very different play, and I'm thankful for that, because the first half, I think there were a lot of pacing issues with the way the guy, it chose to structure it, I think, because there wasn't a lot of change going on, and so it just seemed to vacillate for a bit there. But there's so much going on today, and her character got to come out more, and she got to say more, and there's just so much more that seemed to be that it seemed I could pick up on, that her being a foil for Cleopatra, and these decisions that she makes, for the peace of the country, even if it comes at the personal price of, affecting her relationship with her husband, who's not really there, and, straining the relationship with her brother and things like that. And even debating becoming a mother. I don't know if historically she had children with Antony, but it doesn't seem like she did in the play. maybe that's something I didn't pick up on, but to make this big decision and to carry it out alone in Rome, as a noble woman, in a society when I don't think really could with that position have a job, and just that these are political prisoners that she would be taking on too. I mean, it's so interesting, all the stuff that Lynsey was giving today from the character and that Angela was giving the other day. And I think there's really a lot to mind and explore. And like you were saying before, Rob, that there's there's parts that you could smush around a bit, to make, to reorganize. And I think that would be nice. But I feel like she's a lot stronger character in the second half than I was picking up in the first.
Yeah, it's one of those things. In the first half, she's very much, it's the same game every time she appears, and it starts wearing. Whereas we have today the pivot point where the situation changes, and that gives us something to latch onto, as it were. Liza, I don't think I've gone to you. Any final thoughts? Coming in,
oh yeah,
sans a lot of context.
It's true, but from I can really only speak to this half of the play, but in my mind, the two closest comparisons, like I said before, are Daniel's Cleopatra and Cornelia. I forget who Cornelia is by.
Well, both Cornelia and the Tragedy of Antony are originally by Garnier.
And translated by Kidd?
Translated by Kidd, and the Tragedy of Antony is translated by Mary Sidney.
Yeah. So, Cornelia, I remember as being a wonderful part, but difficult to play because there's a lot of grief, and a lot of it is different flavors of grief and different flavors of mourning. And Octavia, there seems to be more at stake. She, at the most powerful, she has a chance of being able to prevent a war. People who know history knows that she doesn't prevent a war, but in the play, there is a chance that she can prevent this war between her husband and her brother. And that's a very powerful position to be in. And she gives it the old college try, So that makes this part really interesting. And I'm very glad that I got to hear Lynsey be Octavia, and I shall go back and listen to Angela as well. But it's, as always, it's a joy to be among these razor-sharp wits and dulcet voices.
It's yes, I was forgetting. Of course, Cornelia also vaguely fits within this temporal framework. We've got a Julius Caesar to do yet. That's to come. In the same vein, as it were. So yeah, increasingly building the extended universe of neoclassical Roman tragedy, as it were. It's just and also we got the Wounds of Civil War, but that's a very different genre of play, in a sense of what it's doing. So I wouldn't necessarily want to mix that together. But yeah, there's a huge amount of material that is starting pootling in the back of the brain. We can do things with these things. All that remains is to thank all these wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye to the crowing cock of shame.